All right, so there's this really smart guy. His name is James Wood. He teaches at Harvard. He writes literary criticism for The New Yorker. And in his book, How Fiction Works, he talks about every writer is working in three languages. And in a nutshell, the first language is the language that the writer just uses. That's what's going on in the writer's head. The second is the language of the character who the writer is writing through. The third is the language in the world around the writer. So for us, it's the billboards, it's texting, it's the blogosphere, it's the internet, it's just our natural lingo, our slang. Hey, what's up? It's going to be a very different writer than "Good evening, sir," and all of that plays into all that mixes into this mesh of words that then the writer uses to create. The more conscious a writer is of their use of language as they're crafting and building their stories, they make specific choices on which languages they're going to play with at what time. Genre fiction, largely specifically science fiction and fantasy, I say, has a fourth language because the author, the more cognizant the author is of the language of the world they are creating, allows them more choices and greater immersion for the reader. Like, so many times I've been reading a science fiction or a fantasy book, and suddenly there's a statement or a question or the character says something that just kicks me right out of the story because I'm like, oh, that's not what somebody from this world from the world of the book would say. That's something somebody from Earth is going to say. And I go, ah. And I get over it and I keep going with the story. But understanding fundamentally that when you're creating secondary world genre fiction, secondary fantasy that takes place in another world, or historical fantasy takes place in another era, science fiction that takes place in a far future, or just a weird setting altogether, understanding that you have that the author has choices to make based on their use of language with which they bring the reader into the world and immerse them in it. And so that way they understand that fourth language doesn't always mesh well with the other three languages that writers work with. And so the more cognizant of that a writer is, that fourth language when they're doing genre fiction is going to help them write a more immersive experience for the reader.